Hi guys, so today I thought that I would share with you how to knit a basic pair of mittens, and I do have the written instructions on my blog if you're interested. I'll leave those linked below, but as for right now, let's get started. The yarn I'm using is the Vanna's Choice yarn in Cranberry. It is a bit thicker of a yarn, which will make your mittens a little warmer. And for my needles, I'm using a pair of circular needles in size 6. I only use circular needles because I find them easy to work with, and you don't have to worry about putting it down for a little while or anything like that. Switching angles so that you can see a bit better, I'm starting out with a slip knot, and to do that, I'm essentially just making an X around my palm, slipping that off into a pretzel shape and grabbing that right hand loop and pulling tight. This will allow me to slip my needle right in there, and that is my first stitch. Then I'm going to cast on 39 more stitches, so I have a total of 40. And to do that, I'm just making a loop with my thumb, bringing some yarn around and pulling tight. This is a pretty basic cast on, and I have mentioned this before in some of my other knitting videos, so if you're interested in a more depth video on that, you can check out some of those other ones. And I'm just going to cast on a total of 40 stitches. Now that I have all 40 stitches, I'm going to start working on the cuff. So to do that, I'm going to first insert my needle from front to back, wrap my working yarn around the right hand needle, and then pull that through the loop on the left hand side. That is a knit stitch, and now we're going to do a purl stitch. So I'm going to bring my working yarn between those two needles and then insert that right hand needle from back to front, wrap my working yarn around, and then pull through. That one is a purl stitch, and I'm just going to keep alternating, and make sure that when you are switching from knit stitch to purl stitch that you move the working yarn to the front for a purl stitch and then to the back for a knit stitch. I'm going to keep working in this manner to the end of the row, which will be ending on a purl stitch, and then I'm going to start over and do that knit purl ribbing again. I'll do this for about 10 rows just so I have a decent sized cuff, and then it's time to move on. Once my cuff is to where I like it, then I'm going to start working in stockinette stitch, and I'll be doing this for about 2.5 inches. What stockinette stitch is a row of knitting and then a row of purling. So I'm going to start with a knit row, inserting my right hand needle from front to back, wrapping my working yarn around, and then pulling through the loop on the left hand side. I'm going to do this through the entire row, and then I'm going to be purling for the next row. So that means inserting the right hand needle from back to front, wrapping the working yarn around, and then pulling through that loop on the left hand side. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I have 2.5 inches. Once I have my 2.5 inches, I'm going to start increasing for the thumb gusset, and this is going to be easier to see than to actually listen to. I'm going to knit 18 stitches, and then I'm going to knit the front and back of a stitch. I'm going to start off like I normally would, inserting from front to back, but then leaving that left hand loop on, I'm going to insert my needle from front to back on that back side. So then I'm going to knit one and do the same thing, insert from front to back, and then insert from front to back on the back side. Like I said, this is going to be easier to look at than listen to me actually tell you, but then I'm just going to knit to the end of the row, which is a lot easier. Once that row is completed, the next row is much easier because you're just going to purl all the stitches, and then we're going to work another increase row on the next one. As I said, this next row is an increase row, so I'm going to work 18 stitches, knit front to back, and this time I'm going to knit 3 since we have increased 2 stitches on our last row. Then I'm going to do another knit front back and knit to the end of the row. I'm going to continue in this manner until there are 52 total stitches, and then we are going to work on the thumb itself. To start on the thumb, I'm going to knit 33 stitches, which will take me to the left hand side of the thumb, and then I'm going to turn all of this work around and start working on the middle 14. So I'm going to purl 14 and then I'm going to turn my work around completely again, and then I'm going to knit 14. So essentially I'm just working on those middle stitches, working stockinette, and I'm going to do this for 10 rows. Now I'm going to work on the tip of the thumb, and to do this I'm going to knit 2 together through the entire row. So I'm going to insert my right hand needle from front to back through the next 2 stitches on my left hand needle, and this will leave me with 7 stitches on my right hand needle once I have completed this row. Then I'm going to purl 1 row and do the exact same thing, but since we'll only have 7 stitches, I'm going to knit the last one. From here, I'm going to cut the yarn, leaving a fairly long tail, and then thread the yarn that's connected to my mitten onto a yarn needle. Then I'm going to slip this right through my stitches, sealing them all together. Going back to the hand of the mitten, I'm going to rejoin my yarn on the left hand side of the thumb and knit to the end of this row. Then I'm going to purl right up until that thumb gap. To bridge that gap, I'm going to turn my work around, and then I'm going to insert my right hand needle from front to back into that first loop on the left hand side. Wrap my working yarn around and then pull the loop through and set it on the left hand side. So I'll do it again. It's right from front to back, pull through, and then set on the left hand needle. So we've just increased 2 stitches, and I'm going to turn the work around again and purl to the end of this row. This will bring us back to 40 stitches. If you counted when we were doing the thumb, we had 38. And so now we're going to work stockinette stitch again for 2 more inches. Okay guys, we're in the home stretch. So I'm going to start shaping the top by slipping 1 and then a second stitch to the right hand needle, and then I'm going to knit these 2 together. That's a slip slip knit, and then I'm going to knit 16 stitches, and then once I have completed those 16 stitches, I'm going to knit 2 together like we did with the thumb. These are directional decreases, so the slip slip knit creates a stitch that leans towards the left, while the knit 2 together leans towards the right. Then I'm going to slip slip knit again for the other side and knit 16 stitches, and then knit 2 together right at the end. As always, our next row is going to be a purl row, and then we're going to go back into that decreasing, but rather than knitting 16 between our decreases, we're going to do 14. So it'll be a slip slip knit, knit 14, and then K2 together twice. We're going to keep working in the same manner until there are only 4 stitches remaining. I'm going to essentially shut this off the same way that I did the thumb, by cutting off the yarn and then slipping that onto a yarn needle, and then slipping that yarn needle right through the 4 remaining stitches. From this point, all that's left is to seam up the sides of the actual mitten itself and the thumb. And honestly, I don't really want to go too much into how I do this because I'm not really very good at it. I know I've been knitting for such a long time. I really should be better, but honestly, if you just be careful while you're knitting it up, then you should be fine. All that you have left is to make a second one and you're done. So these make a perfect gift, or for yourself, they'd be wonderful. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!